YouTube, what's going on? HeirofCarthage here. Hey, I've been working at home, which means when I do take a break from work, for a few minutes here and there like I do in the office or anywhere, I can play some games. And so I played 10 ladder battles today, as I had the opportunity, both this morning, maybe at lunch, other times, like just things I was working or in between a meeting. It reminds me of a few things, and I'm going to make a few comments. Obviously, I have some battle footage for you. Ladder in this game is much the way I remember it. It's sometimes enjoyable, sometimes painful, and just generally not quite as satisfying as it feels like it should be. Now that said, why do I play it? Well, I do feel like it's good practice for taking on other human beings, and maybe I'll explain a few of the thoughts about that real quick. I guess one of the things about ladder that I dislike the most is when you go in, and I'm not blaming people. I do the same thing. You have to do this. When you're playing a ladder battle, whoever picks first, the other person intuitively is going to pick a faction that they feel like they can play against that one. And then if you're the first person and you want to change because they, you know what I mean, you get into this string. So I have a habit of going in, picking, sticking with what I'm going to pick, no matter what my opponent does. But then I feel like sometimes I'm fighting all day against a bunch of just counter builds, which gets really old. So one of the things that I wish they could do is at least make factions pre-picked in quick battle. I'd really like it to where you have to pick your army. Now, that's going to be a lot more controversial, so I won't push that one a whole lot right now. But I would like it if you had to pick a faction before you got into quick battle. And I think that would make it fun, because then you could say, all right, well, today in quick battle, I want to mess with this faction. And you just go for it, see what happens. And then you don't have to worry at least about the pick, counter-pick type of stuff. Now, it doesn't make ladder battles unplayable. It's just something from me. It's the reason why I don't play them that often, because it kind of wears on me. I'm going to try and force myself through it and see where I get. But anyway, out of 10 battles today, it was about 50-50. Not a big surprise. I guess one of the things that surprised me is twice. Once I lost to a guy who was in the top 50. And he beat me good with a good pick. And it was totally a deserving victory. But the weird thing is like knocked me way down the ladder when he beat me. And I'm like, how does that score system even make sense? I got beat by a guy who outranks me massively. And then I have other battles where I'll lose to someone who isn't near as high on the ladder, and I'll barely drop. So I guess the scoring system eludes me a little bit too. So personally, I still prefer casual battles. But anyway, this is just a quick intro. I will, of course, timestamp this in case you all want to skip it whenever you go in the video. But let's go look at some replays from the day, see what happened. So this was my last battle of the day, and honestly the most fun as well. So this AIMA Sadao, or however he pronounces his name here, he was commenting on the fact that we got this altar map, and I agree with him. This map is awful and shouldn't be in the rotation for multiplayer, like not quick battle at least. This map is really bad because neither player can basically do anything ranged. It forces you to run straight at each other's face. Let's take a look at my army. I'll tell you what I was thinking, then we'll look at his army, and you'll obviously get a chance to guess what he's thinking. I don't live in his head, so I can't tell you what he's thinking. I've brought a fire sorceress because I feel like fire magic is probably as good as anything versus the coast. I've got a master here for doing a little anti-large armor-piercing type work, and to support the Supremem Sorceress with the guardian trait. I've brought a ton of infantry with the idea that coast infantry, unless you go really heavy on like sirens or depth guard, coast infantry sucks. I figured he would be rushing some on this map, but in case that he had brought missiles, I bring a bunch of cheap shielded infantry with some anti-large cavalry with the cold ones, and then I've got a couple of harpies and 3 dark riders positioned behind him. And basically, I'm just hoping to swamp him with numbers. And if you look at the numbers here, I do outnumber him by quite a bit. Now, he's got a scurvy dog over here on my flank right away. I expect to see scurvy dogs on the battlefield. They're a great unit for the coast. And then what I didn't expect is his main pick. Now, the sirens I did. He's got a couple of those. I did expect to see the sirens here. I have some magic damage to deal with them with my sorceress. There's a couple of bloated corpses, and I forgot about these guys. And that's actually a pretty interesting addition to a rush army like this. And when I say like this, he's got Cylostra on her giant hermit crab, and then the same thing over here with another rotting leviathan. These 2 units are meant to do all the damage in this army, with maybe a lucky hit from the bloated corpse, while you get a little bit of hit point absorption from the zombie pirate deckhand mob, and then he's got a Lamprey's Revenge way back in the back. It's a rotting Leviathan with some handguns on it. So interesting unit indeed. And he's holding it in the back because he probably wants to see what I'm doing. Now the battle starts off. I immediately don't like my position. I don't want to run into these crabs any quicker than I have to because I want my harpies to come up. I'm going to try and use the harpies to bust his bloated corpses to try and prevent them from doing excessive damage. But then I'm going to have to use my cold ones to try and hold his main line off me for a minute because he does have enough speed to get into me quickly, and he's going to do so with his dogs over here, kind of holding a spot down for Cylostra. And let's take a look, a couple things with Cylostra real quick. If we go into her, so a couple of things with her, you don't see her all that often, number one. Remember that she has this Ghost of the Past, and she can summon a Damned Knights Errant. Very handy unit when used properly. The Song of Enthrallment, that can be good too. It's a lot of speed and melee attack it takes away from around her. And then the VANGHEIST'S Revenge. Now this is a wind spell that's basically a giant barrage from an ethereal ship. If you can create a blob, it becomes very useful. So she's looking to probably create a blob and do a lot of damage, and honestly, when this battle starts, I had completely forgotten about VANGHEIST'S Revenge. And as for my standpoint, I've got the the Black Horror, which again was a pick just in case I get a straight line engagement or a blob of their troops that I can run it over it. Same thing with Sirens. And someone told me that I'm saying Sirens, and it should just be saying Siren, but it says S-Y-R-E-E-N-S. That's Reen. In the English language that I'm familiar with, two E's in a row make that hard E sound, E. So I'm saying Sirens until someone can prove to me otherwise there. Anyway, I'm using my Cold One Knights to fend this stuff off. That's the only anti-large armor piercing I got, and honestly, I bring Cold One Knights because I don't have a whole lot of other options, I guess. I should have probably just brought Charybdis. I mean, I don't know now thinking about it why I didn't just go with the Charybdis. It would have been a better pick. Cold One Knights suck. I'm sticking to that. I know some people use them and they work okay sometimes, and yeah, okay, they're okay sometimes, but I don't know, I'm sticking to it. Cold One Knights suck. I don't even know why I bring them, to be honest, just because they have the anti-large armor piercing. I'm going to keep the Sirens back for just a second with a quick charge. I don't expect it to do much. I've got to get away from them. I'm just trying to keep them back for a moment. You can see here that the bloated corpse already got in. I actually avoided it mostly, and it blew up a lot of its own Sirens, which was great. The other corpse, I didn't mean to blow up two of my units, but a Miss Micro there kind of did that, and I was like, oh, well, hey, we'll get Cylostra here. This is no problem. We got her. And then I see that wind spell line up, and I'm like, oh, dear gracious. Blam! Yeah, rest in peace, my troops. So yeah, I just lost a whole bunch of troops. That was a great play. Great play by my opponent here. Now, I'm not out of the game yet. There's a lot of game left. A couple mistakes by me so far, but nothing that is finishing the game. These Dark Riders, I can use them to clean up zombies, and I'm going to have to continue to try and clean up Cylostra. About all I can do is send a bunch of spears after her and try and use my Cold One Knights. I don't really have a lot of great options. These units put out insane damage. Insane damage, and they're gonna have good splash damage. It's armor piercing, they terrify. I'm gonna be struggling with it. Cylostra's singing is going to be, tormenting me in this entire one. Yeah, I do try and get rid of some Sirens here, so I got a bit of a breath spell going. It did okay, did a little bit, didn't do a lot. Could have been better. I'm saving the Black Horror for what I hope will be a better opportunity to use it. And then I'm going to be using Piercing Bolts and Burning. I've seen from people that the Piercing Bolts actually do pretty good against these big units if you can hit them. You can see there I kind of got a partial hit. It did some damage. So it is an odd one there, but I have seen people show that and kind of talk through that it can actually do some damage. It's rare. So I'm charging in my leaders to try and do damage to Cylostra and her Rotting Promethean. Back here I did get some work done, but just against cheap units. Here comes the VANGHEIST'S Revenge again. This thing becomes available more often than I thought. Wasn't as devastating that time. I think the first time it did a little more, but it still hurt really bad the first time. She's bringing in her damned Knights Errant. It's going to be pretty crappy for me because I was trying to get my leadership out of here, and all of a sudden I'm just swamped with the Drowned. So Cylostra is doing what Cylostra does here. But with all this going on, I see some opportunities to try and do some more work here. I'm just going to keep going at it. That's all I can do. I'm going to drop another piercing bolts in here. It does get some work done. It was actually fairly effective. I did get my Fire Sorceress up away. My Master here is still stuck in the fight. But yeah, doing what I can from up here. I figured a Fireball might help against Cylostra, but somehow my Sorceress completely missed Cylostra with the Fireball. I mean, like, totally. And it was an overcast Fireball at her, and I'm certain it was targeted on her. I clicked it on her. I don't even know what happened right there. I can't begin to explain it. It was a little frustrating, to be honest. I am going to bring out the Black Horror and try and clean up these Paladins were about to go away, or these Knights Errant were about to go away anyway, but it's like, whatever, I'm going to go ahead and clean those up, get them out of here, do what damage I can. There were some Syrenes in the midst there too, so I figured that was a way for me to try and use that without killing as many of my troops as I otherwise would. I managed to get my Cold One Knights into the Lamprey's Revenge, which does pay some dividends, and with some concerted effort and most of my army dead, I am making some headway against Cylostra. If we could kill her quickly, I might be able to turn some leadership in this fight, but as of now, the power bar is only slightly in my favor. And it's mostly just because of numbers. I mean, we are getting shellacked by these units, and it looks like you almost have her dead, but that's still 2,100 hit points. So, looks can be deceiving. So this is, I expected this to be a big melee brawl. Oh, you got eaten. At least I am doing that here. I feel like I am doing a good job feeding the crabs in this case. The crabs came to battle hungry. I brought a lot of food for them. I don't intend to let them win the battle, but, I mean, we're letting the crabs eat good tonight, folks. It's rough. I keep throwing units in here. Cylostra's finally losing some leadership. Lamprey's Revenge comes in a desperate attempt to help turn this fight. I chase them. My Cold One units are here. I'm like, you know what? I think I can turn this. I might be able to do this, but Cylostra's just not dying. And she's routed the Master. The Master's knocked out, so all I have is a bunch of infantry, which is exactly what Cylostra is great against. So it's tough. She is losing hit points, but she had a ton to begin with. Plus, I have to deal with another crab who's in decent health. And my leadership is pretty much wrecked, so I have to be careful. With Cylostra on the rocks, I decide to charge in, try and get one or two good hits with the Master unit, but as soon as he dives in, he takes a massive shot from Cylostra and immediately routs again, causing really no damage, so my hit didn't even go in, didn't even impact. And you can see here that Cylostra is really, really debuffing all my units and making it harder and harder for me to do anything to her. I tried a Piercing Bolts of Burning. That's a challenge with that. It has a wind-up time. I did forget about some Harpies back here that I wish I hadn't, but I don't think that they would be making a huge difference. So all I can do is just try and kill Cylostra. I started the charge, decided not to. I was like, after seeing what happened to that Master, I better not. She starts to crumble. Unfortunately for me, though, it's a slow crumble. We may get rid of Cylostra, but I'm struggling to understand how I'm going to get rid of this other crab, and this has been quite a nightmare for my troops. I mean, can you even imagine being thrown into a cold wasteland and trampled by gigantic undead hermit crabs with a ghost on top who's singing at you? It would be pretty strange, to say the least, in case you all were wondering. I mean, I've never been thrown into such a world, and I'd really rather not. It's such a fun army, though, by my opponent. Fun army in the sense that it was fun to play against. He gave me a good challenge. I like the planning behind his army. Use these two damaging units. I mean, think about it. It's the Vampire Coast. You know you're not going to come in and, like, if you're going to build a rush army, you're probably not going to come in and just have a big throwdown with infantry, right? Yeah, sure, you can bring Depth Guard, stuff like that, but they're fairly limited in number. That makes them a little bit vulnerable to things like that. These units are tough. The Dark Elves have answers to those units, but you'll notice that the pick that they made here, there was Bloated Corpse, there was two of these crabs, and they were positioned in different sides of the army initially. And some of you might be saying, Air, you should have brought Dark Shards. Well, part of the reason I didn't bring Dark Shards is because of the fact that, oh, speaking of which, look, my Fire Sorceress came back, and I was like, oh man, I can fireball that crab, maybe that'll help. Watch what happens. So I go over here to fireball the crab, and she reroutes before I can even cast the spell. So at this point, my guys just keep coming back. I'm just shocked that army losses aren't playing a thing here. I'm thinking it's just because it's 156 to 1 in terms of numbers, but this 1 is way more than my 156. So I do get to ritualistically feed my men to the crab to end this battle in an appropriate way for the viewer, you know. I know you all like seeing Dark Elves being eaten and trampled by a giant hermit crab. I do. I thought it was pretty fun. It was a close one. This is a lot of fun. Appreciate my opponent giving me a fun battle and kind of making light of the crappy map that we drew. And, you know, I enjoyed this one. There's a lot of, I actually played as Vampire Coast most of the day, and so it was kind of fun to get to play against Vampire Coast at the end of it. I had pretty good success early on with Vampire Coast, and then pretty bad success later on with it, so I've probably had about all the coast I can handle, but I felt like this was a fun way to end the day. And appreciated a good game from Sadao here, Sadao? If I'm saying it wrong, I apologize, but it was a lot of fun. He was a cordial player. I'm trying to remember, he was in the list somewhere around like the 300 or 400s. The other guy I played earlier in the day, Slade X, he was nice also, and I played him. He kicked the crap out of me with the greenskins, like just mopped the floor with me. I think I was playing as Dark Elves, and I'm honestly not great at picking against the greenskins. I'll have to, maybe I'll show that battle, and we'll talk about that one. Watch it end up being the battles that I lose that I end up showing on YouTube. Sometimes the battles I lose are just better, like more entertaining and like actually more enjoyable for me. This was the most enjoyable battle I played all day, and I lost. So for me, the leaderboard isn't necessarily about winning, I guess, because that part I don't really care. I just like fun battles, and this was one of them. Anyway, but I also thought it'd be fun to give you a few of my thoughts on the leaderboard as it stands. It's something that I really want to see improved in future Total Wars. I feel like the multiplayer in this game is a lot of fun, but the match-made modes of it are just so lacking. And the only time it seems like they even made an attempt to make it not be lacking was Shogun 2, and they've never tried since. And so the multiplayer in this game is dependent on people kind of having a good community, getting together and playing, which we do. We got my Discord, and there's a lot of other places. Turin runs a whole bunch of battles. I'm trying to think. Dov runs a whole bunch of battles. There's a ton of people who do. Indie Pride plays battles on this all the time. There's a ton of people who do, and I'm missing some, I'm sure, as I say that. So it's not like battles don't happen or the multiplayer isn't a facet of this game. It is. What I hate is that there's not like a huge, thriving, and I say huge in the sense of Total War. I'm not expecting hundreds of thousands of players, right? But I feel like there should be a couple of thousand players, at least in this game, playing multiplayer at any given time. And I know there's not. Because you run into very few people, honestly, in the ladder as you go through it. I would like to see more modes, more thought into it, because this is something that I think keeps the game alive. Now with Warhammer out, the campaign is also very enjoyable and replayable, which is great. That's kept me playing this game longer than any other Total War game. And the multiplayer is fun because there's so many builds and so many lords and factions and matchups and team battles. And like I said, I would like to see some multiplayer modes where you go match in and, you know, you're able to do it a little easier without necessarily having to go out into these side communities and do it. I love the community I'm in. I'm not trying to trash it. Just saying. What do you all think? Give me your thoughts. I want to hear what you think. Also, did you enjoy Crabs Eating Druki? I mean, if you enjoyed Crabs Eating Druki, make sure and get up there, click that like button. Now, if you're a Druki fan, on the other hand, and you did not enjoy seeing a hermit crab destroy your beloved Dark Elves, click the thumbs down button for me, please, and then hit the comments. Tell me your thoughts on the matchup, the state of multiplayer, my thoughts on ladder, how you think, anything you want. Anything you want. Please comment. Hope to see you again soon. HeirofCarthage signing out.